start shooting questions, please do. Also, our moderator will try to put up some questions right now. And before we start, maybe like one quick question, like, yeah, how do you see like the data science as it is today? So how do you think it still has a lot to go? Do you think we're still at the beginning of something big? How do you see it? Just in a couple of quick words while we get this started.
You don't want to?
Tarry, go ahead.
All right. I think it's really a field that is expanding dramatically, and it almost feels you kind of get greedy because you want to learn everything, and that can be sort of may not be the best path if you want to basically specialize. So data science, you either focus, start from a domain problem that you want to solve, and then look into a specific field in data science, such as computer vision or NLP. These are two sort of primary fields that are kind of both have a huge traction. So I think there's a lot of room for even in academia to actually create more focused, more advanced curriculums that will help people at the university level to improve their skills. If you go into your master's, you want to do a PhD. So that is something which would be extremely helpful. And I know it's a difficult task. It started off with the revolution of a few universities. So all in all, I just kind of, just summarize it. I think it's a huge field. There's a lot of opportunity. Trying to take a shortcut is a dangerous path. Look into some specific application domain and then try to apply your skills. That is, I think there's enough room for us to specialize in our own with our own competencies.
I'm a very practical person, right? So I go kind of straight to the point. I struggle to understand why data science is not yet driving the promise that we have in the last 10 years. And I think the main reason is we tend to complicate more things than they need to, number one. Number two, there's a lack of executive talent. I don't think there's a lack of talent. I disagree 100% with that. I think there's a lack of executive talent, which is people that can actually be at the top driving conversations and bridging between executives and teams. So that technical leadership, I think there's a massive hole there. And there's no even education to do that, because all the education in academia is tailored to learning new algorithms and learning how AI is great and stuff. And third, the vendors actually contribute to the state of the art across the world. You guys don't want to hear how bombarded every single one of us driving science in companies, applied science in companies. We are bombarded every day with my tool does cooks for you, builds French fries and steaks and stuff. And that proliferation and fragmentation causes massive inefficiencies, right? So for me, I'll tell you one thing is we'd rather have to be more practical and get the job done faster at scale, because I'll tell you, in enterprises, I would almost put my hands into fire. 80% of the use cases, the algorithms to solve them are done, and probably they have been done for the last 20 years. And that's probably bad, but that's the reality.
So I would like to just focus on one particular thing. So companies that are doing well and are leading the AI and machine learning and data science field don't really have, they have to go through, of course, more development and more maturing, but they're doing all right. So the big, one very important challenge specifically for a country like Portugal is the very large number of companies, which may be small or larger, and the organizations that are even now at the point of digitalization. So they come to us, and I'm with INESC Tech, which is a lab that does a lot of knowledge transfer and collaborations with companies. And many times, quite often, companies come to us and they want to use their data, or they want to solve their problems using machine learning and data science, but they are still lacking the quality data that is required to solve the problem. So this is a very big challenge that is not only for data scientists, but it is for IT in general. And this is something that will develop strongly and quickly in the next year. So in 2018 there was a survey in Portugal, and only 4% of companies felt that they had some kind of maturity in AI. So, and 60-something% believed that they had, they were thinking or said they were thinking about it. So this gives us a picture of what data science is now. So it's 2019, so 1 year went by since that survey. But it means that there is a lot to do for a lot of companies. So we usually look at the unicorns, look at the big companies that have big resources and can do beautiful things like Eliano was describing in his great talk.
I'm not one of them.
And what we are facing is a sea of organizations and companies and SMEs that are lacking even something that comes behind data science. So there's a lot of work to do in terms of development of data science in the next 10 years.
Should I say final word?
Yeah, sure.
So I cannot speak from an academic perspective, but I can definitely speak from an applied perspective from a non-profit and public sector side. And I think on that side, there's definitely a lot that can be done with the current data science techniques. And we've seen some examples in the morning of successful projects, and I think there are a lot of organizations and entities in Portugal and in other parts of the world that definitely would benefit from applying the current techniques that we have. So I think definitely there's a lot that we can do with data science.
Okay, thank you. So, sorry, my mic went off. So then there's this question. Usually, actually get other profession as data scientists, but will AutoML destroy my job as a data scientist?
I could take a bit of this. As a data scientist, and trust me, I still code every day if I had to. My job is not building models only. I drive change across an enterprise. I drive adoption. Modeling is actually a tiny bit of my job. Just getting the data together, solving the problem, thinking about the problem. There's no machines that will replace that. It's a myth. No, if everyone in this room thinks that being a data scientist is building models, at least in the applied world, I mean, good luck, but you're probably wrong. We do way more than that. And I'll tell you this, in the last year, just at Emirates, the stats around what actually the modeling part contributes to, it's around 10-12% of our job. And as senior as you get, the more time you're going to need to get people to use and change, to really take advantage of some of these techniques. Now, for me, AutoML could just be something that enables me to scale a little bit further, but to be honest with you, the amount of time we still have around getting the data and putting it together is ridiculous. So would that destroy my job? No. I welcome all of that. It will make my job even faster, so productivity will go high.
Well, this is a very typical question. You can generalize this. Will I be replaced by a machine that does my job better? There's even a song, Hot Chip. You can listen to it. And this is an instance of this question. And of course, AI and machine learning will replace many jobs and will change many jobs. Of course, the more complex the job is, the more creative the job is, the harder it is to replace someone doing that job. So some simpler jobs, very well-defined jobs, will probably be disappearing in the future, as many other jobs have disappeared in the past, and many new jobs will appear. In the case of the data science is a very complex process that requires creativity, engineering, technology, knowledge about maths, about computer science, about statistics. So it is very hard to replace. As someone from artificial intelligence who believes in strong AI, I think that any job can be done by artificial intelligence in the future, but I don't think that we will see, or at least during my lifetime, I will see something that will come near an automatic, a fully automatic data scientist. But I believe that AutoML in particular and artificial intelligence will give very interesting steps in the direction of automating or a great part of the job or a good part of the job, and that will be this will be there to help us, not to destroy our jobs, but it will help us to do better and quicker, and to achieve better results.
Anything else to add? No. So let's go to the next question. Next question. So I guess this is more for you, Eliano. If airlines save 40% in food waste, if autonomous cars have less crashes or less fraud on banks, why should we care about explainability?
Because the regulators don't understand ML, and therefore they're going to force us to give them solutions that sometimes don't make sense. As trying to get AI to explain what it does may be a very challenging task. That's all. It's very simple. It's the regulators, it's people that don't have the same background as we do, and they're going to force us to be able to go to a gradient boosted tree or a complex CNN and extract things and try to make things make sense out of that. My personal advice into this is we should care about explainability more for us to understand what we are doing, rather than trying to convince the people that are forcing us to go into that route. I've had the pleasure, should I say, of spending 6 months in the EU to get a solution to pass through. It was right before GDPR came into, and we were debating, lawyers debating, I mean, the rule of 10 versus higher or more, and it's insane. I mean, if there's anything smart about that, my God, I'm really dumb. So I'll tell you, I think explainability is a very important topic, as well as privacy and all those other things. I just think the drive, some of the drive behind it is, in my view, incorrectly positioned. It should be for us to understand better what we're doing, rather than being forced to explain to other people what these black box things will do for them to actually approve new regulation to come. And I'll just finalize with this is, a lot of things in industries, like insurance. Insurance is actually a very great example. A lot of the innovations is not coming through to reality, especially with some even traditional machine learning, because the regulators still want coefficients to be able to validate some laws. And this is true in here in Portugal, also around the EU, also around the world. And until some of those regulators refresh in terms of skill sets and capability, which actually could be a great opportunity for academia to go and do some executive courses for those guys, we'll struggle to get some of the industries to actually take off. And then when we talk about AGI, as was just being discussed before, this for me is one of the biggest challenges we face as practitioners. I don't know other opinions on the topic, but.
So first of all, there's no less fraud on banks, there's more. There is Danske Bank in Denmark, and I can say that, used to be a past customer in my past life. They've been involved in 200 billion euros worth of objectionable funds in the East Europe. In the Netherlands, banks like ING and ABN AMRO have been, they shut a blind eye to transactions which they didn't want to report coming from, funds being redirected through other routes. So I think the bad actors are probably in many cases, should be explainability, putting into a banking ecosystem and asking them to explain more to regulators than trying to put technologists in this place where The only thing that we focus is optimization. And we cannot optimize fraud. We can try to figure out that we can solve the problem of fraud if that data is reported. So there's a lot of human element involved in people embezzling funds. So I guess the autonomous vehicles data, I just don't want to go one by one. There's not enough vehicles driving. There's just 1 billion miles being driven or so by Tesla. So we still need good statistical kind of data to be able to start making that correlation. But I think explainability is good, is for us. It's almost like, back in the days when Oracle database and all these other databases were coming in the 60s and 70s and 80s. There were manual procedures to optimize. It's all about optimization. So, I have an Oracle background 20 years ago. So, they used to have a cost-based optimizer, CBO, we used to call it, or rule-based optimizer, sorry. So you could optimize things and tune and tweak things around to make sort of database do a better search query for you. And when automation started coming into databases, this is like 2005, 2006 timeframe, there were cost-based optimizers. So sort of algorithms in databases that would do the right path to give you a good search query. So it's purely an endeavor where you mature or maturize the industry through improving your stack. So essentially, there's no software per se when you talk about AI or machine learning or deep learning. So software development is still a field that needs to evolve and come up to a point where you have software where banks will adopt and that will have this baked in. And I don't think explainability, XAI, and all these things will be called XAI in the next 2 to 5 years. They will just be part of a mature software stack where at some point in time you have TensorFlow, PyTorch, a bunch of other frameworks that will come packaged with an ecosystem that needs to emerge in order to provide these services into the industry. And that will lead to transformation. So essentially, I think it's a great question. So this actually also explains your question that we are still in a very nascent industry. There's a lot of excitement in both these fields, in computer vision or in understanding and interpreting text data. But it's still early days. I guess explainability is something you need to do for yourself. Interpretation is important. So interpretability, explainability, and reproducibility is also a very important thing. So in one research just a couple of weeks ago, only 2% of the research that you read today, there's BERT, we talked about early in the morning. There's Roberta, which Facebook came up with. So they're all improving, and they're saying ours is better than theirs. So there's still kind of an internal battle between them. But we are talking about reproducibility. There's just 2% of all these algorithms. I think there we should focus on as well. So instead of explaining an algorithm that works in isolation, when you take these into industry scale, you need to be prepared. So I think it'll be more, call it just a mature software stack that you have to take into industry. And then the regulatory guys, they haven't been asking security people or database people, explain me how this query works. You just kind of, whatever that they can interpret and understand, it has been given to them back in the days. I think in a couple of years, everybody's going to forget about that. So I don't worry too much about it, if you ask me. But it's good for me. I mean, we're building new models. We're building generative models, which people are, haven't tried. We don't really care much about, trying to explain to researchers or all that. We're pretty bullish and arrogant in that. We know what we're doing. We have good sort of amount of researchers working for us. So I think I would focus on just continue to improve and try to reproduce your results. If you can do that, you're pretty safe.
All right. Thank you. Maybe we can go a bit to the next question. So there was a question that wasn't a top question here. What advice would you give to data scientists that are just starting in the first year, maybe or less, since we, as you said before, we also have a lot of students and people who are starting?
Well, someone made that question today to Ugo when we were speaking, and I quite like his answer, which is learn more maths. Well, I'm not the best person to tell that, but I think obviously it depends on which path you want to go, but definitely if you want to go into the research path, learn more maths. That's the answer. But if you wanted to go into a bit more applied, I would say that don't underestimate the value of working with other people and working in a team and learning to adapt and keep learning, because things are changing, will change. And although it's quite a technical, we all know, job, it also a job that requires working with other people. So don't underestimate being able to work with other people and really understand the issue that you're trying to solve.
And have fun. I mean, we have one of the most fun jobs in the planet, and if you don't have fun as you're going up, it's bad. Can I add one? I'll just tell you, if I had to go back to the days I left university and made the decision to go to consulting, and I'm not saying consulting is the way to go. I made that decision to solve different problems. I have to tell you, one thing that nobody told me that I would like people to have told me is that work with people that have experience in solving problems. Again, if you are on the applied, which is my case, I agree with Sara on that. If you really want to go on a path into applied, and applied does not mean you're not going to do research. It doesn't mean you're not going to do smart things. Absolutely not. You will. It's just select a team that is going to enable you to grow, right? And I cannot emphasize the importance of looking at the people that you're working and going to work with, and really get to know them, what they're doing, what they're going to contribute to your career. Are you going to a place that looks after you, enables you to grow? And also, I don't know, every one of us will have different experience. I have chosen to not take full academy and then go back after, to spend some time in the field, because even on the applied space, it's not the same. So if you're doing operations, big assets, if you're doing pharma, if you're doing retail, there are differences among them. So maybe you want to go and have some experience, work for 1, 2, 3 years, then go back to academia and continue your studies on something more specific, and then go back again. So again, I decided to do that, for example, because I think having the real world telling you what's really important. I mean, we have some great use cases that Sara was presenting this morning. My use case just happened to be sustainability. There's hundreds of problems that could be solved right now, and we are not solving them because the way we are organized worldwide. And if you're going to have this experience, just make a real good decision and have fun.
So I could just try to sum up. One important thing is, if you don't have enough qualifications, so it is important to find some, so to get some, do a master's, do a post-graduation, maybe a PhD if you are more ambitious and you like to go deeper into things. So that is one important aspect. The other thing is that if you already have some knowledge and you want to go for the real world, it is important to go work with teams. Okay, so don't work on yourself. Go work with teams, and it is very important to choose the place where you go, because the team where you are will make a big difference. Then another thing is that data science nowadays is still very much, so a data scientist does more or less the same everywhere. So the profiles are not yet very much apart from each other. But we will quickly have different profiles of data scientists, people working with the data at a lower level, or people working more with modeling, with evaluation, with testing, as we had in the software development chain. The data science chain will have this kind of division as well. So it is important also to choose what you really like, or to try some of these aspects, these different phases of the process, and to focus on that. And of course, if you like to do research, then it's something that you also can go for instead of going to companies. But of course, data science is kicking in and AI is kicking in, as I said in my talk, because companies are driving this quite hard, and lots of things, lots of interesting things are happening in companies these days.
Okay, so I guess we have time for one last question. So Google, Facebook, et cetera, they're hiring all top researchers around the world. I mean, also in Portugal, we've seen a lot of really good talent working for those companies. But in this case, if they're all going to those big companies, who is really driving the AI research in Portugal, and if there is anyone, actually?
I guess that's a great question for you, I would say.
I can take it. Okay. I wouldn't like to.
Because I haven't been here for a while, so
Yes.
I don't have the.
So, of course, this is a problem not only for Portugal but for Europe in general. So this is something that Europe feels, is that the US companies have all this data and have great research teams that are driving AI in many aspects. Also, the Chinese companies, for different reasons, because they have the power of controlling how information flows, and they can motivate companies, the Chinese market, to use the Chinese companies, and they also have lots of data. So Europe is lagging behind in this aspect, and this is something that is acknowledged. And of course, Portugal is also having this particular problem. So despite that, we have companies that are doing very interesting work, and some foreign companies that are installed in Portugal and are driving AI development and AI product development. When it comes to AI research, to leading AI research, of course, this is something that we do. We can say that we do not have, or if we have, is at a very residual level, in very well-defined problems. But of course, it's something completely different what is happening in the US or in China or in Portugal.
But is it a matter of investment, would you say?
Well, investment. Well, you would need a lot of investment to have something of the level of these companies. But I think it's a level of legacy. So it's our situation now. But startups and unicorns in Portugal are doing really great work, and it is possible to find new problems that drive AI research in Portugal. But it is very difficult to come to this situation when companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon and whatnot have lots of data and very large teams that are doing great work. So it's very hard to compete with this. So we, instead of competing, we have to work with whatever comes from there and do our best to solve our particular problems, and also thinking about future AI problems that are not the ones that are kicking in now.
I would like to just say one thing. From an applied world, what I've seen in the last, I would say, 10 years, it's an approximation from research to practicalities, meaning more new research is shortening the time that it can be used in the field. And today there was some invitation. I think you touched a little bit on some of these things in the products you're building. And I think maybe for the next decade, we probably, as a result of this shortening of time from R&D to reality, may require less funds, and there might be more appetite for having teams in academia kind of focusing on this. Because I think what we would struggle, and maybe putting even money into this, is continuing to fund something that you only see the results 30 years from now, which might still be required, but is a difficult bet to do. So.
No. Well, I think that's how you would say that's the $1 million question, right? Or more, billion in this case. So before, I guess we're almost running out of time, but maybe I'll let each of you maybe have one last statement for 30 seconds if you want to leave any message to the participants, or if you want to leave any advice. Yeah. You can start with Eliano if you want to think of it. You got it? All right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've spent a lot of time advocating for using data science for social good in the working with nonprofits and public sector. But I feel like obviously I'm on that side, and I'm an advocate for that work. But obviously, the society and the world we live in needs good people everywhere. So I think my statement is that obviously we need it to be balanced. So we need to have good people in Facebook, Google, big corporates, but we also have to have good people on the other side. So everyone is needed. And I think my final remark would be to keep the final user and the final purpose of what you're doing in your mind, and not just the modeling, regardless of whether you're working with a public sector organization or in a corporate. Focus on the user and what you're trying to achieve.
I'll try to quickly summarize these 4 questions, so at least these questions are answered as well. So I think what I see the theme here in these questions is HITS 2020. I think there is actually, I read in the news, there is a project that is focused on the well-being, and it focuses actually on the history of Europe. And it's probably going to be €1 billion project in which historical perspective of Europe and its evolution through the last thousands of years is going to be involved. So there is, from policy perspective as well, I think there's another question asked here. More needs to be done, but I think from European perspective, when you do research and try to answer those questions, you will understand the fundamental of what Europe is, and probably also answer some questions which we may probably never solve in Europe, is that consensus building. And still, I mean, I always implore, there is €100 billion, which probably is not 100 billion now, but it doesn't really go into AI research, so we lose people to Europe, to US. But I think all in all, basically, what I want to give you, the message home is, you have to continue to sort of build, and it could be in an individual capacity, it could be a group of people. I spoke to many people outside during lunch and the breaks. There are some people who started off their company with their spouses. My co-founder is my wife. So in a way, I kind of resonate that sort of message. There are some things you can do. So change you can bring yourself. Philanthropy is a huge part of our company. I never talk about it, but we go to places. So I think you should do it. Don't sit around in panels. I guess this probably is one, but do it. And I think social change you can bring. You have to spread the message. Funding is going to come. If your startup is worthy, you probably have to move your startup to US. Do it. I mean, there's funding there. Survivability is more important than trying to stay in an ecosystem that probably is not fitting to your acceleration, and that'll help you as well. I think all in all, I think keep learning. This is a fantastic field. It has brought me, and I was telling one gentleman who was sort of disappointed and saying, I wanted to do my PhD, but then I'm looking for a job. I said, you're just in your early 30s, and I, in my mid 40s, started walking back into what I love doing, and this is what I love doing. So I think you can do that as well. You have much decades of sort of time ahead of me. So please kind of keep developing your skills and improve it and collaborate with each other, and yeah, just keep doing the right things and not the wrong things. Thank you.
So this is a great time for doing AI and for doing machine learning. So as I said, I started with AI in 1987. I started with machine learning in 1991, more or less. And I love it, and I've been doing this all my life. And now it's a great time. So you're lucky. If you're much younger than me, you're lucky because you were starting with in the big time for doing AI and data science. So one particular advice that I give is look ahead. So don't just look at what we are doing now. Just think ahead. So think what's coming next. What are the big things that we want to do? So learn, study, go to universities, even go sometime for a research center where you can work on some research and then move to companies. So working in research doesn't mean that you have to stay there forever. So it's good to stay some time in doing research as well. This gives you knowledge. You can even move from companies to research and from research to companies. This is something that is very important, and it's something that we see these days. Young people are moving constantly from company to company. Okay, don't do it too much. You have to also be consistent in your career choices. But it's a freedom that we have these days, and it's something that is exciting and can give you experience, can give you amusement, and you can learn and you can have fun. So my main advice is look ahead. So don't just look to what is happening now. And of course, very important advice: always come to the SPT events.
Thank you, Eliano.
So I'm between drinks and finishing the stuff.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
That's.
I have to keep it short. I have to say to you that it has been a great experience working in this field for the last many years, and it will always continue to be. One particularity, I do have a ton of fun by doing what I do. My passion and my energy comes from the incredible fun I have doing what I do. And I'll tell you one thing: if you're doing this for money, to get papers, to have a LinkedIn profile, you're really missing the point. The next generations to come will depend on what each one of us do today and tomorrow and the day after. And having fun and working in environments that enables you to contribute, even if it's just a small percentage, into the next generations, look after that and have fun. The day you stop having fun and you're doing this because you have a salary, you have a wife, you're really missing the point. And I do have a family. I have to look after them as they have to look after me as well, of course. But I wake up every morning and I just want to reach the office to start smashing things out. So have fun.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask for a big round of applause for keynote speakers. Thank you so much.